For all the calls to release the Epstein docs, a whole new tranche just came out today, and it's not the ones people were expecting. Bloomberg got 18,000 leaked emails. These have never been public before, from Epstein's personal email account. He was using Yahoo. And it sheds new light on his predatory tactics. It also continues to reinforce what the DOJ, under Ms. Comey, the now fired prosecutor, showed in her prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell, that she...
Se le acabó la mentira a Donald Trump y sin duda tiene que estar en pánico. Amigos, filtran correos electrónicos de Jeffrey Epstein. Y lo que encontraron ahí, señores, es un verdadero escándalo. No podemos distraernos del verdadero terror del trumpismo. La relación entre Donald Trump y Jeffrey Epstein. Y ojo que eso es justamente lo que Trump quiere que hagamos, que venimos para otro lado, que nos perdamos en su retórica política incendiaria. Pero no, señores, no lo vamos a hacer. La razón, muy simple. Acaba de estallar una nueva bomba informativa. Bloomberg obtuvo más de 17,000 correos inéditos de Jeffrey Epstein. Y dentro de este material aparecen conexiones directas con Donald Trump que hacen saltar por los aires todo lo que él ha intentado ocultar. Hoy vamos a desmenuzar, amigos, la famosa lista secreta que salió a la luz y lo que significa para Trump. Antes de que entremos a fondo, quiero que entendamos el contexto de esto. Y Rachel Maddow lo explicó de una manera brillante en este análisis. Escuchemos.
What happened to the lawyer who got Epstein his bizarrely lenient plea deal when he was first arrested on sex trafficking charges in Florida? What happened to the lawyer who got him that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Well, Trump hired him to be his own lawyer. What happened to the U.S. attorney who gave Jeffrey Epstein that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Oh, Trump put him in his cabinet in his first term. Well, who then prosecuted Epstein a second time when he was brought up on federal charges? Oh, that was the SDNY line prosecutor who Trump inexplicably fired last week. Who was in charge of the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons when Epstein then killed himself in federal custody? President Donald Trump. Who bragged to a reporter about how much Epstein seemed to like women on the younger side? Who said Epstein was a lot of fun to be with? Who bragged that he was friends with Epstein for 15 years? Who flew on his plane at least 7 times? And who now says that everybody needs to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein right now? Answers there are Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, and Donald Trump.
Y es que durante décadas Trump y Epstein fueron inseparables prácticamente. En los 80 y los 90, creo que hasta los 2000, prácticamente eran mejores amigos. Y eso, según palabras propias de Donald Trump. No es un invento demócrata, no es una conspiración. Lo dijo él mismo con orgullo. Y aunque esa amistad terminó, la verdad es que Trump siguió rodeándose de la misma gente que protegía a Epstein. ¿Por qué? Porque querían mantener a salvo sus secretos. O porque sabía que si algún día caía, pues, iba a necesitar el mismo tipo de protección legal. Y ahí, señores, es donde está la clave. Donald Trump no solo intenta protegerse a sí mismo, sino que también a los cómplices de Epstein. Porque sabe que si se tira de ese hilo, todo se derrumba. Lo más fuerte es lo que dijo en este momento sobre una joven que, según él, Epstein le quitó. Escuchen.
That's such old history, very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want another truth.
Los conservadores casi siempre repiten la misma excusa de que Trump se alejó de Epstein porque se dio cuenta de que era un mal tipo. Y eso es una mentira, señores. Donald Trump admiraba todo lo que Epstein representaba. incluyendo su comportamiento criminal. De hecho, el hermano de Epstein aseguró que Epstein consideraba a Trump un estafador. Y el propio Trump reconoció que lo que los separó a ellos fue una pelea personal por una mujer joven. Exactamente el tipo de relación turbia que vemos reflejada en esos correos y en aquel cheque por $22,000. Pues bueno, señores, llegamos a lo explosivo. La lista secreta. Correos del año 2006 muestran a Ghislaine Maxwell escribiéndole a Epstein con una lista de 51 personajes poderosos y pidiéndole que revisara quién debía permanecer en ella. La respuesta de Epstein, clara: borra a Trump, sáquenlo. Eso fue justo 2 meses después de que fuera acusado en Florida, cuando la fiscalía ya había identificado al menos unas 40 víctimas menores de edad. Escuchen.
The downfall of the highest-ranking official to date in the Epstein saga. Today, the UK fired its ambassador to the United States, Peter Mandelson. First, his name popped up in that Epstein birthday book that was released this week, which includes a note apparently from Mandelson describing Epstein as, quote, my best pal, unquote. Then there was more, much more. Mandelson's name came up over and over in a collection of Epstein emails published today by Bloomberg. Let's bring in Jason Leopold, a senior investigative reporter at Bloomberg who helped publish this report today. Thanks for joining us, Jason. Give us a sense of the type of emails that mentioned former Ambassador Mandelson.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Jake. So these emails, there's about 100 of them between Mandelson and Epstein, and it covers a 5-year span between 2005 and 2010. Importantly, however, there are maybe about 80 or so that span the 2 years in which Jeffrey Epstein was charged with sex crimes in Florida, and following through 2008 when he was trying to fight back against the federal investigation.
Mandelson told...
And within those emails...
Keep going.
Yeah. Within those emails, you see, you read Mandelson, supporting Epstein to the point where he brings up using the art of war, Sun Tzu's art of war, as a tactic, to way to fight back against these allegations. There's another email just a day before Epstein reported to prison in 2008, in which he said that this is something that just couldn't happen in Britain. It was essentially a grave injustice what was happening to Epstein.
It's true. It didn't happen in Britain. Prince Andrew obviously was named in this scandal. Mandelson told the British tabloid The Sun that he found his words, quote, very embarrassing. He said he regretted falling for Epstein's lies. Did you find it notable that Mandelson's not denying that he wrote these emails?
Yeah, I do find that notable. But the emails speak for itself. And for your listeners out there, we have a separate story that our brilliant team of data reporters and engineers put up just to explain how we vetted these emails. So it was very clear that it would be hard to essentially deny what we were presenting here. And as I mentioned, there are there's a trove, but in the ones that we reported on, you really get to see how that relationship between Epstein and Mandelson was going, and how it was very close to the point where Mandelson was trying to help him, trying to help him beat back these charges, the federal investigation, and essentially going to work for him, lobbying to some extent, or at least that's what Epstein asked him to do to assist him.
You also note in the emails that you obtained that Epstein and his ex-girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison right now, exchanged emails about trying to discredit the women who raised allegations against them. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So this is another story that we published this morning, and this is based on 650 emails that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein exchanged, and it really gets to you get to see how close their partnership was. And within those emails, there are discussions that's taking place in which Maxwell, you get the sense that the heat is turning up on Maxwell, and she is discussing with Epstein how they can discredit ultimately Virginia Giuffre. And she asked him for, and this is in 2014, by the way, in an email, can you give me whatever your attorneys have, the files on Virginia? And basically within those files, whereas it appears to be some sealed documents, confidential documents, and sometime later, a story pops up in the New York Daily News related to what was in those confidential files.
Fascinating stuff. Jason Leopold of Bloomberg, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Great reporting.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it.
Ahora bien, señores, yo les pregunto a ustedes, ¿quién negoció ese acuerdo de risa que le dio a Epstein apenas 18 meses de cárcel? Alexander Acosta, que más tarde fue nada menos que el secretario de Trabajo de Donald Trump. Él mismo admitió que le dijeron que no tocara el caso, porque estaba por encima de su nivel de sueldo, y que Epstein pertenecía a inteligencia. ¿Casualidad? Otro correo del 2007 menciona de nuevo a Trump, apenas un mes antes de que Epstein firmara su acuerdo judicial, que fue lo que le dio la inmunidad a sus cómplices. Y todo esto se mezcla con nombres, amigos, magnates inmobiliarios de Palm Beach, fotos hasta el cheque firmado por Trump. Las piezas encajan. Donald Trump estaba en el círculo íntimo de Epstein y ya no hay forma de negarlo. La pregunta es, ¿por qué Epstein decidió cortar con Trump? Entre palabras, ¿no? Alejarse de Trump. Porque todo indica que fue Epstein quien quiso sacarlo de su vida, porque lo veía como un estafador. Y eso explica por qué es que Maxwell necesitaba su aprobación para borrarlo de la lista. O sea, era la señal de que el propio Epstein había terminado esa relación. Lo irónico es que Trump sale a demandar al Wall Street Journal diciendo que es difamación relacionarlo con Epstein, pero estos correos demuestran exactamente todo lo contrario, que Trump siempre estuvo en ese círculo y que, de una forma u otra, fue cómplice. Lo más indignante, Donald Trump jamás ha mostrado compasión por las víctimas de Epstein, tal y como lo explica Lawrence O'Donnell en este análisis.
Andrew Weissman made the wise point last night on this program that Donald Trump has done everything he can possibly do to dehumanize people. He did it in his first campaign speech of his career as a presidential candidate, dehumanizing people crossing the southern border, desperate to find a better life in this country, calling them rapists and criminals. He then went on to use Adolf Hitler's language to describe people in this country, including people who vote for Democratic candidates. He has called us vermin. That is Hitler's word. Donald Trump tries to dehumanize anyone who doesn't vote for him. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell dehumanized their victims. Donald Trump was very close friends with Jeffrey Epstein. According to Jeffrey Epstein, for 10 years, Jeffrey Epstein said, I was Donald's closest friend for 10 years. Ghislaine Maxwell, the dehumanizer of those women, some of whom she met when they were little girls, completely ignores the pain of the girls she chose to victimize because she dehumanized them. She didn't think of them as people. The rich heiress who was suddenly penniless when her rich father lost all of his money and then desperately clung to Jeffrey Epstein's money, dehumanized those girls because she believed they were born beneath her station in life and they would always be beneath her. And so tonight, Donald Trump said, I haven't even thought about that. And that's very believable coming from Donald Trump. That's what Donald Trump said tonight about meeting with Epstein survivors. And Donald Trump said, you just heard him say, Nobody suggested that. Those were his words. Nobody suggested that. No, nobody working for Donald Trump. Nobody except the Epstein survivors themselves, who Donald Trump dehumanizes to the point of ignoring what they said directly to him.
Por eso mismo, señores, es que les dije que hoy por hoy no hay que distraernos del verdadero escándalo. No hay que suavizar el lenguaje ni dejar que nos digan que es retórica política. No, señores, esto es un encubrimiento. Esto es criminal. Y otra cosa criminal, señores, que acaba de salir a la luz. Una demanda que detalla la sorprendente prueba de lealtad de Kash Patel a Trump que condujo a la purga política en el FBI. Esto, señores, que se acaba de revelar es algo que debería de preocuparnos a todos, porque prácticamente ha quedado en evidencia cómo es que Trump convirtió el FBI en un instrumento político a su servicio. Esto lo confirma. Y ahora esta demanda de 69 páginas lo deja descubierto. 3 ex agentes de alto rango, condecorados, con décadas de servicio, fueron despedidos no por incompetencia, sino por negarse a someterse al test de lealtad a Trump. Preguntas como ¿a quién votaste? Preguntas como ¿has apoyado a un demócrata en los últimos 5 comicios? ¿O cuándo empezaste a respaldar a Trump? Veamos esta noticia y luego la analizamos.
On a day when the government agency most completely in the news is the FBI, we want to bring you this important story. 3 longtime, decorated, highly respected former FBI employees have filed a lawsuit against the FBI and Justice Department and their current leaders, including FBI Director Kash Patel. That lawsuit alleges that Patel knowingly broke the law when he fired senior FBI executives at the behest of the Trump White House. The 69-page complaint says that the plaintiffs were the target of, quote, politically motivated retribution and are seeking to, quote, vindicate their constitutional and legal rights. One of the plaintiffs is Brian Driscoll. He is a career FBI employee. Donald Trump appointed him to the role of acting FBI director at the start of his 2nd term, while Kash Patel was awaiting Senate confirmation. Driscoll was fired by Donald Trump on August 7th, reportedly for refusing to fire agents who'd been assigned to the investigations into the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. The plaintiffs are described in the lawsuit like this, quote, Brian J. Driscoll Jr., Stephen J. Jensen, and Spencer L. Evans served this country with distinction and courage as special agents and senior officials at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Over the course of their remarkable careers, they prevented terrorist attacks. They rescued American hostages. They saved children from predators, and they disabled violent street gangs. That is who they are. According to the lawsuit, the incoming FBI director, Kash Patel, quote, stated that his own job depended on the removal of the agents who worked on the cases against the president, regardless of whether the agents chose to work on those cases or not. The suit argues that Kash Patel's actions are a violation of the federal law and of the United States Constitution, saying this, quote, Patel not only acted unlawfully, but deliberately chose to prioritize politicizing the FBI over protecting the American people. His decision to do so degraded the country's national security by firing 3 of the FBI's most experienced operational leaders, each of them experts in preventing terrorist attacks and reducing violent crimes. Joining our coverage, MSNBC senior investigative correspondent Kara Lenig. Kara Lenig, that's the first time I've had the pleasure of introducing you that way. Let me first say welcome and thank you for saying yes. And let me ask you about this really serious reporting you have on what is the most serious kind of story we cover around here, and that is a lawsuit alleging a political purge atop the FBI.
Well, Nicole, first off, thank you for the warm welcome, which I've received so many places. And thank you for the energy and emphasis you put on this subject and have, whether it's when I was a Washington Post reporter or now that I'm a member of your team. This is, to me, a pretty stunning, striking legal complaint. 69 pages, as you mentioned. But it is the first time there are inside accounts from the top layers of FBI headquarters, these three extremely senior career agents, one of them the former acting director, who give voice in their legal complaint to private conversations that they had with Kash Patel, Deputy Director Dan Bongino, and the efforts that they made to sort of stand in the way of a mass purge of FBI agents. And the payback that they received for that was for they themselves to be fired later. The striking thing, Nicole, that comes from this account is several episodes in which Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are described as kind of junior amateurs who don't really know how the FBI works, but are under and admit knowingly that they are under pressure from the White House and from Trump's MAGA supporters online to fire specific agents. In one instance, Acting Director Brian Driscoll refuses to turn over the names of rosters of January 6 investigators because he knows that they are being considered for mass firing without justification. Kash Patel would later testify before the Senate in sworn testimony that he would never, ever use politics as a justification for firing anyone, and he would never mistreat or abuse any FBI agents. But in fact, he then, in private conversations, according to the legal complaint, then admits that he has to fire these individuals who investigated Donald Trump because, quote unquote, they tried to put him in prison and he has not forgotten.
Carol, let me play some of what you just described because it's part of the lawsuit. This is where the agents who filed the suit are making the point you just made, that either he's lying, that he's lying under oath when he says this. Watch.
You've committed that the FBI will not be politicized. So here's your first test. Will you commit that you will not tolerate the firing of the FBI agents who worked with the special counsel's office on these investigations?
Senator, I appreciate the time to visit with you.
It is a yes or no answer, and it is your first test.
Senator, every FBI employee will be held to the absolute same standard, and no one will be terminated for case assignments.
And I'm not.
So one of the earliest claims in the lawsuit is that that was a lie. And one of the things that is in here is we've heard a lot about loyalty tests. We've heard about threats of polygraphs, but I want to read because I think this is the first time we've actually had the entire text of the loyalty test. I want to read this from your reporting and from the lawsuit. These were the questions asked of Acting Director Brian Driscoll. 1, how would you define the most significant threats to the United States? Answers: cyber, terrorist, counterintelligence threats posed by China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, ISIS, Syria, and all their affiliates, porous borders, fentanyl, transnational gangs, cartels. Question 2, what are your thoughts on the structure of the FBI? Response 2, in order to constantly improve, any organization needs to evolve, and the FBI is no exception. Effective evolution with an improved or enhanced end state must be done with a measured and strategic approach. The FBI can be more efficient, nimble, and field-focused with a deep understanding of the nuanced complexities of each area of responsibility for each field office. Question 3, who did you vote for? Response 3. Driscoll refused to answer this question and stated that it was an inappropriate question with Hatch Act implications. Question 4. Do you agree that the FBI agents who stormed Mar-a-Lago, to include the rank and file, should be held accountable? Response 4. No. FBI personnel were doing their job in furtherance of court orders, legal warrants, and a properly predicated investigation. Question 5. What are your thoughts on diversity, equity, and inclusion? Response 5. Driscoll mentions that members of his own family were first-generation citizens and that he strongly believes in diversity and a diverse workforce that represents the people the FBI serves. He noted that he does not believe in promoting people for the sole reason of diversity and did not support diluting standards for the sake of diversity alone. Question 6, when did you start supporting President Trump? Response 6, Driscoll refuses to answer this question. Question 7, have you voted for a Democrat in the last 5 elections? Response 7, Driscoll refused to answer this question.
Como les dije, señores, esto confirma lo que sospechamos desde el inicio. Kash Patel, designado como el director en funciones del FBI, mintió descaradamente bajo juramento. Mientras en el Senado, él aseguraba que jamás usaría la política para despedir a nadie. En privado confesaba que su propio cargo prácticamente dependía de eliminar a los agentes que habían trabajado en las investigaciones contra Trump. Eso no es independencia institucional, claro que no. Amigos, una purga política en toda regla. Y pensemos solo en lo que significa, ¿no? Agentes con años de experiencia en contraterrorismo, en crimen organizado, en operaciones internacionales, todos apartados de su trabajo simplemente porque Trump no olvidaba que habían cumplido con su deber. El resultado, como lo dice la propia demanda, fue un debilitamiento directo a la seguridad nacional. Este caso revela, ¿no?, el verdadero plan del trumpismo, que es transformar cada institución en un brazo de su movimiento MAGA. La lealtad personal, no la Constitución, como criterio máximo. Y si logró hacerlo con el FBI, pues bueno, ¿qué pasará con lo demás? Yo me pregunto ahora, ¿quién va a vigilar a los vigilantes cuando la Policía Federal responde solo por el capricho de un presidente? Muchísimas gracias, amigos, por quedarse hasta el final de este video. Recuerden, como siempre, regálame tu like, comparte el contenido y suscríbete a nuestro canal. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.